Hi guys, I'm here to talk to you today and discourage you from watching Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is the follow-up to the 2014 Godzilla reboot and I guess quasi in-universe movie with Kong Skull Island. Um, Godzilla 2014 was, this boring slog of a movie where you don't see the monster till, a third of the way through the film.
Roger, target in sight, 2 o'clock, 300 meters.
Warlock 6, X-01, target confirmed.
Sam, please turn that TV off.
And in that moment, which I think is its defining moment, it cuts away from the monster to a child watching the monster fight on the news and then never back to the fight. And I think that's a defining moment of that movie because it exemplifies the filmmaker's philosophy of like hiding the monster, and the people are more interesting than the monster, and like you don't really want to see the monster, and all this drama that we've written for the people is more interesting, so we're going to focus on that. Ultimately, to that movie's credit, in the last like 15 minutes, it pays off with some really solid, high-end monster action, well shot, well-conceived monster action that is absolutely top-notch at the end of Godzilla 2014. And then, so that movie received a lot of criticism for like hiding the monsters because it's a monster movie. It's a kaiju movie. No one's going there to see like high drama, people, interpersonal interaction. At best, these monster movies, if they want to show some person-to-person interaction in between monster fights to justify monster fights, they're self-aware, they're funny, they're campy, they're cheesy. Godzilla 2014 was so self-serious, and all of the characters were really fucking stupid and really fucking boring, and it was arduous. Like I said, I love the ending of that movie, but I will probably never see that ending to that movie again because it is a chore to watch the 2 hours that precede it. It is an absolute fucking chore. That movie was a massive disappointment. You can still go back right now. The Criterion Channel has plenty of the best classic Godzilla movies on it right now. You can see Godzilla vs. Mothra. You can see the original Ghidorah movie, the Rodan movie, the original Godzilla movie, and you can see my personal favorite, Destroy All Monsters, which happily, heavily, proudly puts its weight on dozens of inter-monster fights like peppered throughout the entire movie. It doesn't waste any time getting to some monsters, men in rubber suits. Maybe with that budget, they were able to really do it. Destroy All Monsters on Criterion Collection. Definitely check it out. Just total. I love that movie. I even like the 1998 Godzilla movie a little bit. Like, it emphasizes the monster a lot. You get to watch him do his thing. It's great. And the buildup is reasonable in that movie. And what's in between it is some kind of, 90s kitsch. Like, it's fun. It tries to be funny and poppy, but it's got some pacing to it. And, like, it never takes itself so seriously that it would cut away from God fucking Zilla to this other, to whatever, there's Ferris Bueller or whoever else is in that movie. Ferris Bueller, great in that movie. So then the monster movie that followed Godzilla 2014 was Kong Skull Island, which definitely I would say is the current modern example of how to do it, because lots of monsters in that movie, lots of great action, the cinematography, the colors, the environments all pop, all look great. The actors in it, John C. Reilly, Samuel Jackson, Thomas Hiddleston, all really fun to watch them interact. It is a very clever movie. It's a well-directed movie. It's a movie by somebody who really likes to watch all these interactions, and it is way better for it. And so the hope going into Godzilla King of the Monsters was that they would carry that spirit, because supposedly they share a universe, and next movie they're setting up a Godzilla versus King Kong kind of movie. So yeah, here's hoping. And King Kong has like little, like, you can kind of cameo mentions in this new movie. So they're really pushing it. It's only a year away. However, Godzilla King of the Monsters really continues the philosophy of the cutaway. And basically, there is, instead of saving the monster action to the end, the monster action, to their credit, is peppered throughout, and the monster action is pretty great. It's good. I wouldn't say it's as creative or thoughtful as the monster action in its predecessor, but ultimately it is still thin, rare, and it's just more evenly spread out throughout the movie. And the rest of the movie is fucking infuriating. It is a maddening slog through a family drama that wouldn't even cut it without the monsters or whatever. Like, it is not entertaining in the least bit. There's no tension to it. There's no sense to it. It's not so bad it's funny. It's not so bad it's good. It is not campy. It is a fucking chore to watch, like, Eleven cry all the time with her mom about these monsters, and like it is often cutting away from monster fights to this fucking bullshit. And there's probably also like a good like 45 minutes of spectrographs in this fucking movie. They have one scene where suddenly they cut to Washington, D.C. has been destroyed by two of the monsters. And you're like, I just spent all this time in a submarine with like 11 for like 15 minutes, and I didn't get to see them blow up like Washington, D.C. Like, that's not consistent with the philosophy of how these movies were made in the 60s and 70s. You would definitely watch that movie stomp its fucking way through Washington, D.C. You know, it'd be great to see a monster stomp its way through Washington, D.C. right now. That would be fantastic if Godzilla would just like step on the fucking White House. But no, you don't get to see that. You see that in like a quick, a quick shot of, oh, DC's destroyed now. They got DC destroyed. Let's go back to the submarine, and that's really what the movie is like. You've seen like some fraction of every single monster fight scene from that movie in the trailers. That's how thin it is. Probably, it's very, 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 very frustrating to watch Godzilla King of the Monsters. And it is very, very boring, like 90% of the time. 90% of the time, nothing is fucking happening. And the characters are idiots. They're written like idiots, and I'm pretty much convinced at this point that they were written and directed by idiots. It just doesn't work out. I don't fault the actors. The actors, we've seen them elsewhere. We've seen 11 on Stranger Things and Caitlin Olsen elsewhere. They're fine. They just have nothing to work with. They've been given nothing. The guy from Silicon Valley is in it. He's fine. Whatever. Like, it's just his dialogue, and it's like, I don't want to watch him. I want to watch Godzilla or Rodan or Mothra or like any of these classic monsters. Like, duke it out. Yeah, it's just like, fuck this movie, man. Like I said, the action is fine when it shows up. There's definitely, it's large. It's definitely meant to like enshrine these monsters as these battling gods. However, one thing I missed from the previous movie had a really great like sense of scale. Like it really liked to show off how big Godzilla was and how big the weird monsters Godzilla was fighting in that movie. It really liked to show them off, and I really appreciated that about 2014 Godzilla. It's just boring. It's a boring movie most of the time. And when the monsters show up, it decides that it would rather you watch something else. But I showed up to see the monsters, man. And hopefully next time we get to see some monsters.